here. Oh, but now my camera's gone on. Oh, I have this here, so that'll work. All right.
I'm ready to go through Facebook.
All right. Well, we got a picture of you on the screen, so that'll work. All right, guys. Sorry about the delay. We're experiencing technical difficulties. I'm assuming Cody will keep working as we talk. Anyways, welcome back to a special edition of Real Men Wear Kilts TV. Tonight we're talking politics. So yeah, Cody, why don't you give yourself a quick introduction and just say who you are, and political affiliation, all that stuff.
All right. You can call me Cody. I've been living around North Carolina for a good part of my life, but I've traveled around the states a bit, so I have a decent idea of people and places around the states. I've got pretty well conservative mindset and morals for the most part. I'm fairly constitutional in terms of obeying the law, and I have been voting Republican, honestly, because most of the other options aren't particularly great options. Yep.
All right. So those of you who haven't seen any of my political talk and whatnot, just a quick rundown with me. I am a constitutionalist who leans slightly libertarian. I live in Nebraska. Used to live in North Carolina, near where Cody lives. I guess I'm pretty much what they would call conservative, but not necessarily in the archaic sense of the word, but the more modern, definition of it. I vote Republican 9 times out of 10 as well. And when I decide whether I'm for an issue or against an issue, I tend to ask 2 questions. And I gotta get a yes on both questions. The first question is it constitutional? And the second question is it good for the country? And the reason I require myself to get the answer of yes on both of those is something can be good for the country but be unconstitutional, and something can be constitutional and be bad for the country. So that's kind of my stance. I don't know how you make decisions on how you view a policy and whether you're for or against it, but that's how I am.
Usually, how I try to go about it is I'll go do a similar process. How constitutional is it? What is the law or bill actually going to do? And what's the previous record on the person putting forward this bill or law really going to do what they say? If it's just a superfluous sort of law, like this doesn't change anything, but it has words in it, I really can't stand those. I'm actually going to make progress towards something. Yeah, all for it. Let the thing happen. If it's going to take away some of our already current freedoms, I don't get very happy about that in the slightest.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm definitely for more freedoms, more rights, more privileges. And you brought up a good point. There are so many laws on the federal books that the average American on a daily basis is in violation, like felonious violation, of up to 22 laws every day. I mean, it's ridiculous. Because one, when a law gets outdated, they don't either update it or take it off the books, or two, they just make laws for the sake of making laws, and the hell with the consequences for that matter. I'm sure you've noticed this, Cody, right?
I can't say I have the exact numbers on it, but there are definitely laws we go about breaking every day in some states without knowing it.
Right. Well, this is a stat I came across about 10 years ago, and it just kind of stuck with me that, the ridiculousness of it. So let's kind of break into some of the meat of some of the current events going on. First of all, I'd like to say my heart goes out to the families of this 5-year-old boy, Cannon Hint. Cannon Hint was actually living in North Carolina. He was about a week away from starting kindergarten, and a black man by the name of Darius Sessoms went up to this little boy at point blank range, blew this little boy's brains out, shot him in the head, killed him, you know. And I came across this on Facebook, and on the Facebook post about it, someone else popped on there basically saying this Darius Sessoms was. Oh, there you are, Cody. Anyways, now I can't hear you.
It's a workaround. I had to push the button. I finally got it to do something.
Sweet. Okay, that's my friend Cody. But anyways, this individual commented on there. I can't remember their name off the top of my head, and I can't find the post now. But this individual basically said that this Darius Sessoms was a hero for splattering, and I quote, for splattering this little boy's white privilege all over the pavement. Now, to me, that is just a sick act what this Darius Sessoms did. One. Two, this is happening all over the country. Kids are getting shot, near these protests, well, these riots. Let's call it what it really is. It's a riot. And then you have these people popping up on like Facebook and Twitter and various social media outlets basically praising these individuals. I don't know your thoughts on this.
Honestly, some of the stuff like that that's been going on from Cannon to a bunch of other kids that have been shot. Even a black girl in the back of a car in a Wendy's parking lot was shot.
Exactly.
It's honestly disgusting that we're having groups trying to claim that, oh, this is great. We're this next terrible generation, whether they're this side or that or whatever. And not a good thing. Our society has come to such like a degrading level of like still a human being. Because they weren't the same skin color, don't mean to degrade them or their parents to such a level. And it honestly makes me rather sad that we're talk about such things on platforms that we are without it getting like proper upper coverage. And
well, I mean, Fox News did a piece on it for 5-10 minutes, but but you don't hear about this stuff on CNN or MSNBC or CBS or ABC or any of these other news outlets, especially the mainstream ones. Hi, Fran. Go away. Go lay down. Sorry about that, dogs. Hey, go lay down. Anyways, I mean, this is our, these kids that are getting shot, this is our next generation of potential leaders, doctors, lawyers, farmers, storefront owners, entrepreneurs. That 5-year-old little boy or that little that little black girl, they may have been the next Bill Gates or whoever. I mean, some great innovator. I mean, next president. I mean, we don't know who that child would have grown up to be, and we'll never know now because these sick fucks are, and pardon my language, but these sick fucks are killing these kids, and very little is being done about it. Which really pisses me off. I don't care what skin color the kid is. They can be pink with purple fucking polka dots for all I care. The fact is...
Hold on to interrupt. Something was done about the Cannon Kids killer.
He got...
Other stuff.
Right.
The girl in the Wendy's parking lot. But things are being done. We don't always hear about it, but we're making progress for the very
right.
Well,
I'm not talking about like the law. I'm not talking about the law enforcement aspect of it. They're doing their jobs, trying, or at least trying to do their jobs as best they can. But what I'm talking about is there's not enough awareness being raised about this. That's the important part, is because if we raise awareness about this, maybe we can change the culture, for the better. just my opinion.
And you're not wrong with it. And it's honestly a one step at a time process changing the culture. It's not like we can jump ahead and change a whole town at once, like folks are trying to do in a very violent way.
Right, and we'll get into that.
Neighbors going one person to one person and realizing how we see things differently, we can come together and say, wow, we're not all a bunch of assholes. All a bunch of assholes. We about what's happening to each other. We need to figure this shit out before
Exactly.
we go into another civil war, because that would not be great for anyone.
No, it absolutely wouldn't. And, we need to, we need to do something about this. I mean, it's really, we need to raise awareness about these kids getting killed, because this is our future. This is, I mean, I'm 31 years old now, but, I got a son out there somewhere, and I don't want to see him get killed, and I hope I have youngins in the future that I actually get a raise and, see them, grow up and, and prosper. That's my opinion as far as that goes. This is something that is a symptom of the real problem in this country. And a lot of people, people on the left are going to say, oh, well, we just need to take away the guns and then this won't happen anymore. But
racist static, that'll solve the problem too. No more cops.
Right. And they're lunatics for thinking this way. The fact is, since we put more restrictions on guns, and prime examples are New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, New Orleans, there's
California cough.
No, California in general, with the exception of a few areas. This is, we can see that the violent crime rates actually skyrocketed in those areas. In fact, if we look at murders per capita, the United States right now, as a whole, rates third in the world for the most violent crime. However, if we take away these places where there's large amounts of gun violence or violent crime, and we take away, we eliminate them out, because they're the places that also have the most stringent gun laws. The United States goes from third in the world for most violent crime to third in the world for the least amount of violent crime. And that's a staggering number. And it might be, my numbers might be a little outdated as far as that goes, because that was, I think, 5-6 years ago I saw those numbers. But I imagine they're probably pretty close.
From what I remember, that those numbers still hold pretty true. Overall, I think we may have gone up down since then in some standards.
Right.
They're
probably very close.
Yes.
And these are statistics that we need to look at, real facts and statistics. You look at countries like Switzerland, for example. Switzerland, yes, they have compulsory military service, which we don't, but their citizens who serve in their military for a while are considered reservists after that and are required to maintain their weapon. It's not uncommon to go into a bar in Switzerland and see somebody with a gun, military issued gun strapped to their back while they're having a beer. I mean, and their violent crime rate is almost non-existent.
Very, very low.
It is extremely low. And we have to look at, why is that? Well, what's the difference between there and places like Chicago and New York and California and, New Orleans and, places like that? And the answer is the amount of guns that are legally possessed by legal, lawful gun owners. Taking away the guns is
they receive on said weapons.
Right. Now, getting back to the story, some might say, get rid of the guns and the problem will go away. Well, that ain't the case. A criminal's going to get a hold of a gun whether they want to or not. The best way that we can change this problem. The problem in this country isn't, too many guns. The problem is a lack of morals and discipline. Good morals and discipline. We bring that back into our society, into our culture. I think we'll see these numbers go down, along with relaxing gun laws.
On that subject, the one I especially want to see relaxed is the gun laws they have on going to certain places like schools or places with lots of at-risk people, like hospitals.
Now, the school thing, that's another important, that was related to this kids thing, the thing with the kids and whatnot. We need to beef up security at schools. And one of the best things we can do, or two of the best things we can do, we can either, A, arm the teachers, and arm and train the teachers, get them their concealed carries, issue them, a pistol that they can keep on their person, or there are a lot of veterans like myself out there that, I'm disabled, I can't work a regular 9-to-5 job. But on a volunteer basis, I'd be more than happy to sit up at my local school with a firearm and keep those kids safe from any potential school shooter. I already have the training. I already have the discipline. It would give me another piece of purpose. I'm sure there's a lot of veterans out there, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of veterans out there who would gladly do it.
On that subject, I'm very happy to say that our little town, which shall not be named, has recently honored a lot of police officers, including what's the word for the ones in the schools? Resource officer.
Right.
The woman really cares about the kid and been getting more and more resources devoted to these resource officers to
right.
protect these kids and keep them safe, as well as that sort of adult role model that helps look after them and they can come to her about problems, and is encouraging other resource officers to sort of take the same role, which has been great for some of the local county schools,
right.
A couple of the other areas around that she's been helping contribute to. Overall, it's been great for some of the schools out here to have a proper resource officers. And if we have veterans coming in and actually doing in with the program as well, that would give the kids more options, just the same person every day, but a set of people. Wow, there's more than one person in this world looking out for us.
Right.
The morals and the upstandingness of other folks.
Lay down. Freya likes to make appearances on the show. Anyway, and that's the thing, I'm sure no school in this country would have a problem getting veterans to volunteer to protect kids. And that's a big thing there because we already got the training, we already got the discipline and the knowledge, and here's another benefit to it. If a kid's having a problem, maybe another capacity of the veterans in the schools could be, maybe the teacher has the kid talk to the veteran for a little while. Maybe the veteran gives them some wisdom and some knowledge, and maybe helps them with their problem. Say it.
The only thing I would start to worry about, excuse me, I have thing I've been working on. The thing I worry about is certain vetting veterans. And no offense to you or any of the others I've met, but there have been one and known cases here and there where they're not quite as due to PTSD or physical trauma.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to hold against them, but that would be one argument that could be posed against having them.
Well, a great way of fixing that is, one, vet the veteran, and then too, as part of the vetting process, have them sit down with a shrink and have state approved shrink, and have the shrinks clear them or not clear them. Not a huge issue. I mean, because it's really a matter of how severe is the PTSD. I got PTSD, but it's not so severe that I can't function and own a firearm and legally handle a firearm and function in capacity to protect children if I needed to.
I never said it was a big issue, but it was an issue that
right. And there's an easy solution for it. But like I said, we need to protect our children. That's one of our best resources. Because those kids are going to be. I think you can agree with this. Those kids are our future. That's the future of this country. That's the future of politics in this country. And while we're on the subject of schools, we need to, as those of us on the right need to change the cultures in schools. There's too much liberal indoctrination into things like socialism, communism, Marxism that needs to be cut out of the teaching in the schools and go to strictly teaching the subjects that they are supposed to be teaching. And here's the thing, I'm a capitalist, but I believe in having a social safety net, in place. But this is a social policy safety net, not socialism itself. And there is a big difference between the two. Social policy includes not only earned benefits, but also some unearned entitlements that need to be distributed responsibly. And it needs to be done in such a way that, and put in place in such a way that it's almost impossible to abuse it. Unfortunately, we have failed in that system as a country so far.
In a lot of ways, we definitely have, especially with certain immigrant programs being more of a lottery and here's a free meal ticket, come on in, versus others where it's just come in, you get your citizenship, you get trained up, you're one of us. Good job. Now you're your own path. Love.
Right. Absolutely love that.
Side, average American sometimes falls down on their bad luck, applies for the name of it now when you're out of a job and you say, hey, I need a little bit of money from the government because me and my family are in a bad place.
You're talking about, are you talking about unemployment?
Unemployment. The thing I have been a number of times.
Right.
Applied for it because I have family and other work to fall back on.
Right.
Honestly, it's a good system. It works out pretty well. It helps the flux of on purpose unemployment and actual unemployment, which helps our economy stay steady during those waves of.
Right.
And honestly, sure, there have definitely been those that have taken advantage of it, but there are also those that legitimately have used it. So it's kind of the same coin with that system. And I do think that sometimes they should be drug tested. There are definitely the advantage, and there are those that just need to keep an eye on everyone.
Right.
How's it going? Da, 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 da.
Another program. This is another federal program. I think unemployment is actually technically state, but there's a federal program called SSI. SSI basically, you're working, but you're not making enough, and maybe you can't get beyond not making enough. So they give you this little stipend. I think it's like a little over $700 a month. It's through Social Security. It's an unearned entitlement that goes through Social Security and funded through Social Security. And the problem with SSI is, I've seen it myself because I've seen people do this. They get on SSI and then they just quit the job. But now they're on SSI, so who cares? And like I said, it's a little over $700 a month. I don't know why you would quit working for that little bit a month.
I could see a single person living off that quite easily if they weren't being like super spending, like frugal.
Well, I've seen this in expensive states like Vermont. I've seen people living in expensive states like Vermont where it's $5 for a gallon of milk, let alone anything else. Doing this, and I'm like,
what is wrong with you,
America? More or less, like I said, I've seen people, literally quit their job because they got this check. They get this monthly check from the government now, and they don't think they need to work. Well, it's not what the way the program is supposed to work. It's supposed to be, okay, well, you're struggling, you're trying, but you're struggling, so we'll give you a little reward for trying because you're struggling.
On the back, push forward to just
right.
line where you keep going and eventually support yourself. And
right. It's supposed to be a hand up, and people are using it as a hand out. And we need to crack down on that. And it's completely different than programs like SSDI, which I'm on that, and VA compensation. And SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. This is, you got hurt while working, and now you can't work, so we're going to pay you money. So you don't have to work because you can't work anymore. But it's also an earned benefit because it's, you've paid into Social Security. They're basically just letting you get in on it a little early.
And honestly, it's a system that also has its goods and its bads. Those that are on disability, even though they don't have to be, I feel a little bit, and can't say who does and who doesn't, because that's sort of individual, how handy capable, disabled you are.
Right.
And there are some that do go to continue to work in the state for certain things, easy stuff, low stress, low physical labor.
Right.
Love this. If you keep doing it, good on you.
Well, I mean, look at me. I got VA and Social Security coming in, but I'm still trying to do stuff in hopes that eventually I might build something up big enough that I'm making enough money where I can say, hey, I don't need to say more. Thanks for helping me out when you did. I'm using, even though it's a program that's meant to be a handout, I'm using it as a hand up.
And you're still out there doing it.
Right.
Get some sort of job, work, your own sort of business. I love it. You are like the prime example of American that is using it how it should be.
Well, I mean, that and retirement is boring as hell.
I mean, I probably won't be complaining. But until I do, I'm going to be looking at it like, I can't wait.
Yeah, I basically became retired at I think 23. But you look at how I became retired, it's not so lucky that way. But,
also true.
Like I said, I find retirement boring. I want to do stuff, but I'm limited as to what I can do. So, I can't work a regular 9-to-5 job around other people because it's going to drive me off the wall and I'm going to go ballistic. But I can do blacksmithing. I can, do this here. There's little
stuff you can do for yourself and for others.
Right. And I'm slowly working on building a business. I'm slowly building businesses. In fact, a buddy of mine and we're actually getting ready to go into. Well, I'm not letting the viewers know just yet, but let's just say some like it hot.
So gay porn.
No. It's edible, put it that way. Don't worry, I'll send you some samples, man. We're not launching the business till next year. This year is all research and development. It'll be good. But anyways, getting back into some of the stories that have been going on around the country. This is actually really recent. Out in Kenosha, Wisconsin, I'm sure you heard about this, Jacob Blake. The guy who got shot in the back by the cops.
I have seen a snippet of it, but I haven't read into it extensively, actually.
Okay, so looking into this, one in the video, you can see him holding something in his hand that looks like a knife. And you can hear the cops saying, drop the knife, as they follow him around his vehicle. He gets to the driver's side door, opens the driver's side door, and reaches into the vehicle for something. Now, the governor of Wisconsin and the authorities in Wisconsin are not saying whether or not it was a gun or not that he was reaching for. They won't release that information. I think it's very important that information gets released, whether it was or not. But the fact is, he was reaching into a vehicle, and who knows what he was reaching for. Maybe the cops who shot him, maybe they saw the gun, if there was a gun. Maybe he was reaching for another knife. Who knows? This guy has a history of gun violence. In fact, I think like a year ago, I think I saw on Tucker tonight, like a year ago, he was arrested for doing something with a gun. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. But, yes, this guy was shot in the back. But the cops had reason to. One, he was already armed. And two, he was reaching into a vehicle for something else. You know, personally, I think the shooting was lawful and justified. It's tragic that he got shot, but I think it was lawful and justified.
So, as someone that knows only what you have told me,
right,
I try to be as unbiased as possible. So I'm going to come from the cop's perspective first. There are things I'm probably thinking about. One, I'm hearing over the radio before I get to him a little about what his stuff was, or maybe from chatter. Two, he's got a knife in his hand when I walk up on the scene, and he's reaching in that vehicle for something. That could be a gun, it could be a bomb, it could be a hat or something. All I know is he's got a previous record of with a firearm, knife. I don't want to get shot. I want my buddy to get shot. I already like him around the car, as you said.
Yeah, and in fact, they said that they actually had already tased him once,
and he got back up.
Apparently, he didn't go down.
Damn, should have at that point. If the cops start tasing you, don't get up, man.
Well, apparently, he never went down.
Jesus, but yeah. Now, as someone who has only been pulled a handful of times and has like seen someone never reach into the visor, never reach in here, reach over and don't go in the glove box. Keep your hands on the wheel and wait for the guy to come to you. What you're gonna reach for and say, he asks you questions, answer them to the ability. You don't have to say things, but be civil and cooperative.
Right.
Caucasian, black, yellow, orange, purple, I don't care.
Right.
Guy, and he'll work with you.
Right. 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10. That's going to be the case.
That there aren't some
bad apples. Yeah.
Whatever. There are some bad people out there, and sometimes they slip through the cracks and get in positions of power they shouldn't be in. Just look at some of our politicals.
I think my dog Freya wants out. Let me take her out real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, promise I won't think controversial.
Say what you want, man.
Now that I have you to myself, he's a great guy. Just anything I say after this, I am a dirty, truth teller. You can't believe nothing I don't say. I not always know everything, but what I do say, I probably do know, unless I don't. Also, if the chat has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, if anyone is watching. If not, I'll save for our next little Q&A when he goes to take the dog for a tinkle.
What was that?
What was that? I didn't hear anything. What?
Okay, so, and from a tactical standpoint, something I learned when I was in the military is, if someone's got a knife, anything within 20 feet of you, it's a matter of seconds before they can potentially use that knife lethally against you. even if you got a gun.
It's been proven through practice, demonstration, and various other things.
Right.
Like you said, within 20 feet, he can charge, easily get you wherever.
I mean, these cops.
Episode on the damn thing where they had to cock it first and then cocks. Ugh. It's
Right.
This knife can win much every time within that range.
Right, and these cops were all within a few feet.
I'm guessing
of this guy.
Between 10, 15 area.
Within 5.
Yeah. So at that point, it's either shoot or get stabbed if he
stabbed or shot by a shot. We don't know if there was a gun in that car or not. All we know is that he was reaching into that vehicle. I mean, the video's up there online. I mean, you can see the whole thing happen and go down. And if you zoom in on when he's coming around the vehicle, he's actually facing you. You can see he's carrying something in his hand. If you zoom in, you can see the outline of a curved blade knife. So we at least knew he had some sort of curved blade knife. So that being said, I mean, those are really deadly knives, really nasty knives to get cut with.
In the right hand or the wrong, those things can dismember or seriously mutilate you anywhere.
I mean, too easy to slit someone's throat with one of those knives.
Not even slit, you can slip right in that.
Slip right in. You can, get right into the chest cavity and into the heart because of the curvature of the blade. You can go between the ribs and puncture the lung and then curve the blade right into the heart. I mean.
Use the description from up, just stick them right up under the gut because the body always cover right there between the.
Well, I mean that's part of what the knife's designed for. Is if you use it where you got the blade coming out the backside, you can literally within a matter of seconds completely open up someone's guts so that they're to the point where their entrails are actually coming out.
I'll go ahead and leave it at that so we don't go deep into Twitch's no touchy zone.
Yeah. Well, actually, Twitch, I mean, for the most part, Twitch is very much the Wild West when it comes to social media versus other social media sites. So I'm not overly worried about that.
I'll still be a little careful because I know they really don't like certain things that concern, and talks of certain types of people.
Right.
Gestures on things.
Right. So another point I want to talk about. I actually just came across this evening. So apparently in New York City, a 92-year-old retired school teacher got shoved. I don't have the name of the suspect or the name of the teacher, the retired teacher, but got literally. This black guy just literally took his hand as he's walking by and went like that to her face, and down she went, hitting her head on a fire hydrant. Now they did actually catch this guy, and I did hear that he did have a major history of violence. I mean, a 92-year-old woman, in an interview, basically says she's scared to leave her house.
Her face is out there, and she's already been.
Well, they blacked out her face and everything, so you couldn't see her face. So, but now she did say once they took this guy into custody and she was notified of it that maybe in time she'll be able to leave her house and feel safe and comfortable. But this is another example of the sick and twisted things that are going on with Antifa, with Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to say something right now that's probably going to be very controversial. I'll probably get some death threats over it, like I have in the past. But I believe lives matter. Lives matter. And I believe that if you have to put a skin color in front of that, you're racist.
Now, this might be just a little bit devil's advocate. I think the original idea, not the Marxist leaders that founded the whole group, but the original intent behind the phrase Black Lives Matter had some justice to it.
Right, it certainly did. However,
Stuff that was going on.
right,
Now, it evolved,
right,
devolved in some ways.
right. But even the original name, Black Lives Matter, is inherently racist in and of itself. If you look at the name itself, it may not have been the people themselves that came up with the original idea that were racist, but the name itself is inherently racist.
I mean, just think about how if you or I started shouting "white power"
or White Lives Matter, you know.
we get anywhere nearly as well, certainly a lot worse in most locations, which is why we'll resort to or go for the proper phrase of "all lives matter"
Or just Lives Matter.
or "lives matter." Honestly, nobody matters in this circumstance.
Right. We're all human beings. You cut our skin off. We're all the same color underneath.
Blood.
Yeah, I mean, I can make another comment, but I'm not going to. But,
Nice.
well, let's just say it'd be a little. I'm going to say it anyways. My viewers will like it anyways. I've dated women of multiple different races and whatnot. And the one thing I've discovered is no matter what the flavor is on the outside, it's all strawberry inside.
No.
But I mean, it makes the point further in a more comical, satirical way. Without getting too inappropriate with it.
Exactly. And it's just for the demonstration that whether you're atheist or whatever, don't mind me to whoever viewer is hearing this, but we're all God's creatures here. We are man made in His image.
Right.
No matter what race or whatever, we are set here by Him. So
right, and whether it
over each other.
And that doesn't matter whether you believe in God or Allah or who's supposed to be the same being, but I'm not sure, but we'll go with it. Or the Buddha it Hinduism or various other pagan faiths from around the world.
Catholic, Christian, Jewish.
It doesn't matter. The point is, we're all endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and we're all created by our Creator equally. Our founding fathers used the term creator for a reason. Yes, they were all Christian white men of influence, and some of them were slave owners. That was just the evil of the time.
Not all by choice, though.
Not all by choice, and some of them actually freed their slaves upon their deaths and stuff like that. And that should all be taken into account. History isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray areas in history as to whether someone was necessarily good or evil,
It's not the perceived picture, but the actions they take that pave the road to our future.
Right. And, you look at, what Black Lives Matter has evolved into. They had an opportunity to do some really good work, akin to the work of Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks. They had the opportunity to do some good, but they allowed others to, what's the word I'm looking for? Infiltrate and pollute what they originally were all about. This also opened the door for Antifa to come in and really fuck things up. Now let's look at Antifa real quick. They call themselves anti-fascists. However, if you look at their manifesto, they talk about, if you don't agree with us, you have no rights. If you don't join us, you have no rights. If you don't do what we say, you have no rights. Gee, what other group said that once in history? Oh, I remember. The Nazis. Who were? For 10 points? Who were they?
Gosh, I think, weren't they fascists? No.
Ding, 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 we have a winner!
Oh my god. Amazing time.
2020.
I'd like to return my prize. It's honestly ridiculous with how they're going about this, because one of their favorite go-to slogans to shout out when they don't like someone is "Go home, Nazi."
Right.
Go on.
Right.
Still here.
And that's the thing. Oh, and that's another thing I saw popping up on the news today. They're now going into restaurants where people are trying to sit and have a nice, peaceful dinner, with them by themselves or with others.
Antifa or BLM or both.
I think it's a mixture of both, from what I understand.
Wanted to get that clear.
Right. They're going in and they're basically, unless you raise your fist in support of Black Lives Matter or Antifa, they won't let you eat your meal in peace. They literally stand there and harass you and shout at you and all this other stuff while you're trying to have a peaceful dinner. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, if they started doing that with me, I'd end up, probably losing my temper and going to jail. But there'd be a few less BLM members or Antifa members present.
I think that would have to depend on who I was with and whether or not we felt threatened. If we don't feel threatened, well, we would, keep eating. But if they started physically, harassing, messing with stuff where I felt my companions or myself were in danger, I'd probably be a bit more in line with what you would have reacted with.
Well, I mean, you look at the videos, they're literally this far from somebody's face when they're trying to have dinner, screaming at them, standing over them, screaming at this close to their face. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's a pretty threatening position to be in when with somebody sitting down. That's purely from a tactical standpoint, because this person's literally in the dominant position over you. You don't know if they're armed. You don't know if they're going to physically attack you. But there's certainly reason because of their stance that they may. You look at Antifa and Black Lives Matter as of late, they got a very violent, reputation going on right now. You there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I was just missing some notifications.
Oh, okay. But, they got a particularly violent reputation right now. So it stands to reason with logic that they're doing that, they're going to turn violent. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong in that. We've already seen demonstrations of it where they actually threatened an Italian immigrant's business with violence. They even smashed one of the plant pots outside of this building on the second day they visited, which, seems a lot like good old-fashioned mafia tactics, ironically enough.
Well, I mean, look at that video that, I think it was a month or two ago that popped up, where these kids are up in an apartment building looking out at the protest, and they're doing this to the protesters, with their thumbs up and whatnot, and the protesters, or the rioters, throw a brick through their window. Or it might have been a rock, I can't remember. They threw something through these guys' window. And then they're like shouting through the broken window, "We're on your side." Well, no, they don't really care about that.
Care who is on their side. You can even see with the mayor of Portland, like after
Absolutely,
gave them all that they wanted, gave them all support, and they kept harassing them and spray painting a different mayor's house and firing rockets at it. It doesn't matter how much you give them or how much you try and please them. They're going to want more, and for you to have less.
right.
It's just them with the power and the control and the
right. And even then, they're not going to be satisfied. They're anarchists. They're fascists. They're thugs. The majority of them.
It's a mob.
Right.
Vicious, evil, trying to take power and illegally do so mob.
Right. And I know myself as a veteran. I'm sure there's plenty of other veterans out there thinking to themselves, "Why hasn't Uncle Sam took her leashes off yet?"
Because if we make one move wrong, suddenly a certain someone is painted in a very bad picture because, oh, they were peaceful protesters. They weren't doing anything wrong despite all the burnt out buildings and destroyed cars, now attacked civilians and even off duty officers in their homes when they're with their family. Makes me, oh, so very just happy and you want to do some very holy things to these people.
And and that's the thing. I believe in the rule of 10%. You take any group, any demographic group in this country, whether it's military, law enforcement, first responders, rich people, poor people, black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, whatever. And somewhere around 10% of them are going to be bad actors. The vast majority are going to be nice, normal, law-abiding people just trying to live their life as best they can, and provide for their families.
Or those that are caught up in the momentum trying to do something good from the way they perceive it.
Right. Whereas you look at, what's going on with now, as far as like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, yes, there are some peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters. There are no peaceful Antifa peaceful Antifa protesters, and a large chunk of the Black Lives Matter movement is Antifa infiltrates, or they're just thugs looking to cash in on the chaos and stir up trouble.
Now, I can agree with that, and I also disagree. I think that on the Antifa side, getting tucked in there and changing things around and getting them into more trouble is definitely true. I also believe that there are definitely plenty of protests that ended peacefully. In fact, one locally here on the 4th of July, I don't know why they protest the July like flotilla, for the love of God, why protest that? Came out, they were a little aggressive in some ways. I would kept my eye on some of the elderly folks who came out to help support the flotilla, so nothing too crazy happened. Open carrying at the time because go NC, but it was so level of like this feels kind of bad for some of these folks, but at the same time they didn't get to the level where I felt actually threatened, where I had my hand at the ready. I felt fairly safe and that they were actually there to support what.
Right. And like I said, there are some peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters. I think I said that.
Yes.
And those people, I absolutely support their right to protest. I 100%. It's in the Constitution. Peaceful protests get things done. What doesn't get things done is riots, violence, and looting, which is a large amount of what we're seeing.
Oh, it gets one thing done: property damage.
Well, and that's the thing. They're
damaging some of those.
Right. You're destroying your own community. Like, it makes no sense to me at all.
Now, actually, jumping from that statement, damages the community. A lot of these groups actually come from outside the community for some of these. Well, I'm not going to say it. Riots, not protests. The protests usually of their own community members.
Right.
It's usually come from outside sources moved into the town to do all the damage and whatnot.
Right.
Disgusting.
Right. It's one of those things where, you mentioned, I'll let you take the lead on this, because I don't know much about it, but you mentioned something about the Portland Police Department moving out of the main city and into the outskirts of the city.
So, from what I remember reading, I don't have it totally memorized, mind you.
Right.
The Portland Police Department had secluded, stopped defending the building, and the actual federal officers had taken a step way back, which is both a kind of good thing because we're showing what will happen if we keep doing that, and a bad thing because we're giving them ground on that and they're destroying more things.
Right.
And it's really showing that there's no point in arresting these folks if they just keep getting brought to the courthouse and let go with no repercussions, no bail, no nothing. And they even have lawyers at the ready to get people out.
Right.
Sounding a lot less like a protest or anything organized or peaceful like that, and a lot more like a organized civil unrest on the community.
Right.
Can't stand. And as the officers moved to, like, the surrounding counties and others have to uphold law and whatnot, because theirs wouldn't, the Antifa had started moving into the, like, surrounding communities after they had already trashed the courthouse and whatnot, which
Right.
is, and some homes and communities that banded together and, like, kept them out, arms at the ready, not arms, but
Right. Well, I mean, look at the what are they? Selinskys, I think. What's their name?
couple up in Illinois or Missouri, I don't remember which.
I think St. Louis, Missouri, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
You know, those people did the right thing there in how they conducted themselves and handled themselves. They felt threatened. They got their firearms at the ready. Fingers off the trigger.
Very good trigger discipline. I wanted to point
Right. Very good. You know, you only put your finger on the trigger when you're ready to shoot. And they weren't prepared to shoot, but they wanted to make sure that the people in the crowd that were threatening their property, threatening their lives,
helps.
you know, we want to let these people know we're not going to go down without a fight. And, I mean, bravo on their part. But, you know, you look at, they've been demonized by the leftist media in this country for executing their Second Amendment rights and their right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and their right to private property.
Now, the build-up and the follow-up to it, part of it needs to be said, even if they haven't seen it or haven't heard it. Before they even got into the community, they broke down a metal gate, like busted it open,
Right.
and then entered a private community.
Right.
Just like little inkling of that, and they had assumed that it might be a violent group. They didn't know they were headed to the mayor's office. They didn't know what they were doing in the community. They knew they were angry. They knew it was a mob, and they knew that they felt threatened. So they came outside and kept an eye on things. And then they started, the group, mind you, started focusing on the couple.
Right.
And as time went on, they didn't shoot. They kept trigger discipline. They didn't point directly at the crowd very often, except when they started getting much closer up onto
Right.
on sidewalk. And the crowd backed off at that point, and then they started pointing it away. Mind you, it didn't come up in straight aim, but it was gestured in the general, still pointed down, but in that direction.
Right. Well, the woman actually had her pistol actually above, but in the general direction.
Above,
and the man had his slightly down, but in a mid-ready, I would say.
Not actively aimed.
Right. He didn't have fully in the low ready, but he didn't have it all the way up in the ready. I'd call it mid-ready, I guess.
And ready to shoot.
Right.
Aiming just yet.
Right. You know, and thank God they didn't have to. Lord knows what kind of trouble they would have been in. And, you know, I'll say this to any firearm owner in the country. If you don't already have it, I call it freedom insurance personally, but if you don't already have it, you need to get USCCA insurance. They pay for up to $1 million in criminal fees and lawyer costs. They'll hire you a lawyer with that money. And they'll also, if it goes into civil court, they'll do the same thing up to $1 million.
Nice.
I call it freedom insurance.
That's some pretty.
Right.
It's like for the year?
What?
Like $1,100 for the year, or is that like per month?
Oh, no. It's $45 a month.
Ah, that's not.
But like I said, they'll pay for up to $1 million in civil court and up to $1 million in criminal court.
I'll have to start looking into that myself. As a personal set of insurance, I like to have firearms ready in the house.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the room behind me, I got three loaded weapons in the room behind me. Brett's is a to retreat state, and that's my bedroom back there. And well, let's just say I can't retreat any further than my bedroom if I'm in my bedroom when something happens. So,
if someone coming knocking that don't belong in the house, no, I'll be knocking a lot louder with some gunpowder through the door.
Right. And that's the thing, even though I would be totally within my rights, there's still a chance I could get arrested and charged with something if, God forbid, something like that happened. And I do really mean it when I say God forbid. I mean, I hope it never happens. I hope I never need the insurance, but at least I have it.
I agree totally. I hope I never have to kill anyone. I hope I never have to use that sort of insurance. But at the same token, we have to be more aware of that now than ever before, especially.
And,
we are in America.
Something to keep in mind, I mean, and this is something a cop told me. Actually, it was a North Carolina cop that told me this. Don't shoot to wound. You're better off shooting to kill. And the reason being is if you shoot to wound, that person could come back and try and sue you. Might as well just go ahead and kill him. That way that doesn't happen. Which is a terrible way of thinking about it, but it's the truth.
There is some honesty in that. There's also a case of make sure they fall inside the house rather than outside the house, as I'm sure you're aware of on that one.
Yeah, that's to do with castle doctrine, if I'm not mistaken, right? Which Nebraska has no castle doctrine. It's duty to retreat.
Which is why you have to retreat to the... Yeah.
Right. But see, chances are it's going to be late at night after I've gone to bed that someone's going to try and get in here. I live in a small town in rural central Nebraska, so I highly doubt anyone's going to try to. We might have one or two crackheads / meth heads, maybe, in the county. Or in the area. But, I saw this woman the other day in the store that I'm pretty sure she either used to use crack or meth or still did. But, it's just one of those things where we got to be smart. We got to be, as gun owners, we got to be smart. We got to be conscientious of the laws in our state, in the laws in our municipality. We need to be conscientious of this stuff because there's a chance that, we may have issues. And, USCCA helps a lot with that because, they send out the Concealed Carry magazine every month, which has lots of awesome information in it. I've got my third one, and I mean, I've had it for about 3 months now, and the information in there is invaluable.
Nice.
And, me and Dad, we both know that, well, USCCA covers me. It doesn't necessarily cover my dad. My dad would have to get his own, which he hasn't done. Tell me he needs to. But...
Hey, if he's liking the magazine, I like the service.
Right. But, one of the things is, we have right on our fridge the phone number for USCCA posted so that if one of us ends up in that situation, like if I end up in that situation where I have to shoot someone, Dad's first phone call after I get arrested, if I get arrested, is to them. Because they'll take it over from there. They'll get me out of jail quickly. There's a story about a guy, he was released from prison, or released from jail within an hour of getting arrested because of USCCA. And, he ended up, walking away scot-free, charges dropped, because of the USCCA lawyers. I didn't really want to advertise for USCCA, but, I thought it was prudent.
Which is a good service.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a great service. But, anyways, these riots that are going on right now, I mean, they're very detrimental to our society. They're detrimental to our communities and are directly linked to a lot of these deaths that are happening. This last weekend in Chicago, 59 people were shot. And most of it was black on black crime. Which brings up another hypocrisy because you don't see the left talking about this. They'll talk about when it's white on black crime or cop on black crime. or cop on black shooting, not necessarily crime, but cop on black shooting. And they'll stir up all kinds of shit over that. But when it's a black guy shooting a black guy,
what was that? Is that crickets I hear?
Right. So it's like Black Lives Matter, but only when it suits their narrative.
Exactly. They're just trying to stir up the public dispute and divide people and get
right
different directions. It's disgusting.
I mean, you look at this guy who this criminal who got shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Kenosha, Wisconsin's fucking burning because not all the facts are out there, and these people are reacting to only a small portion of the story, and there's so much more detail to it. They think, most of them probably think that, cop shot a black guy in the back. That's about all they know.
And honestly, it's sort of the same thing what happened to that couple up in Illinois. People are only catching like a 30-second clip of the whole 2 or 3 minute video that was taken.
Right.
They're taking it out of context, spinning it off. I will say Fox had him on the program, which was great.
Right.
Did hate the governor took away the guns, and later went back a little bit. Still didn't like it.
Right.
Because after the guns were taken, they could not hire any private security or get the cops or anybody to come.
Right.
Sorry to jump back a little bit, but it was awful.
Right.
Wanted to help protect their property.
And you know what's even worse? These people were Democrats. This couple were Democrats. They were liberals.
It's ridiculous.
Smart liberals because they were responsible gun owners, but they were liberals nonetheless. I would say left to center liberals, but they lived in a very liberal neighborhood, bunch of Democrats and other liberals, but they were at least constitutionally minded and smart enough to know, hey, we live in a big city, we might need these. Hopefully we don't, but we might need these, so we'll get them and better have and not need and need not have.
Certainly glad they had them.
What?
Certainly glad they did have them.
Right. And now, they probably would have voted for Biden. Now they're going to vote for Trump. After that, they're speaking at the RNC. I mean, we got a couple of Democrats. Well, they might be Republicans now. I don't know. They might have changed political affiliation, over this. But the fact is, less than a year ago, they were Democrats, and now they're speaking at the RNC.
Right. It's quite the change of.
I mean, talk about a whirlwind there. I mean. And, let's talk about the RNC thing, the coverage of it.
I am guilty. I have not been watching the RNC. I know it was happening again tonight at 8.
I've seen bits of it, but I haven't seen a whole lot of it. But one of the things I've come across...
Aside from that...
Right. Now, one of the things I've come across is... because I watched some of the Democratic National Convention, it's a stark contrast between the two. The RNC, personally, I think it's a much more uplifting, event than the DNC was. It's more personable. It's more real. The DNC came across as very fake.
Justice.
Fake. Disingenuous. They were very, I mean, it was kind of cool. There was one thing I really liked about it. I thought was kind of cool was when they did the delegate announcing. Is they actually had little video clips from around the country, each state, and territory giving, presenting their votes, but from their local state, and you gotta see different scenes. That was actually really cool. I'll give credit where credit is due.
That does sound nice. However, that brings up what I remembered. I did hear about the Democrat one, and that was Elizabeth Warren, I believe, name. Little not Native American.
I got more Native American blood than her, and I don't claim to be Native American.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. Don't get me wrong. I'm interested in that part of my heritage, but I don't claim I'm a Native American.
I love some of the Native American history. I don't know if I'm
You
actually.
know, I'm about this much Mohawk Indian. This much. You know, I think it's like less than 2% or something like that.
Somewhere back down.
Whereas Elizabeth Warren is less than 1% whatever. So I'm slightly more, but you don't hear me claiming Native American.
And it's they got her to speak for the Native American Conference even like a year or half a year after she found out she wasn't even like 1%. Come on. That was like a spit in the face for Americans.
You know, and I've actually contacted the Mohawk tribe up in New York and said, hey, you know, I don't want to claim it. I'm a very small amount, but I'd like to learn about that side of my heritage. Even though it's a small amount, I'd really like to learn more about it. And I got an open invite to go up there to the reservation and sit and talk with the chief. Well, I think it's one. I think it's one of the lesser chiefs or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But at some point, I'll travel up there to upstate New York when all this crap gets over. Probably in November after the election. And
we got everything closed till just after November, Mr. Governor Pooper, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
Corona's out after 6. No one must go. No.
Oh, don't get me started on Roy Cooper. Don't get me started on that bastard.
Well, let's just say we're in the same boat on him.
Okay, you know what? Since you brought it up, my buddy Jeff. You met Jeff, right? Tall, skinny guy, veteran. Yeah, he's actually kin to Roy Cooper. And none of Roy Cooper's kin like him.
Why am I not surprised?
They all despise him. I'm not going to go into the story because I don't remember all the details. But Jeff told me a story about Roy Cooper and why the kin despise him. And if I remember correctly, it involves a young lady. Just saying.
I have 3 guesses, and none of them are good for him.
No. But the point is, you know, Roy Cooper, he is very bad for North Carolina, and I hope he gets voted out of office soon. For all y'all's sake. You know, there's that gym owner in crap, I forgot the name of the town he was in.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Seeing something.
He's been fighting with Roy Cooper to open his gym. And you know, here's the interesting thing about that is there's also some gym owners up in New Jersey doing the same thing with their governor. You know, something to keep in mind, and this has been proven. I can't remember what, there was some disease that hit London during the reign of Henry VIII, right? And Henry VIII actually came down with it. Now, what did he do when he came down with this disease? He profusely exercised, kept himself isolated, but he exercised and literally sweated the disease out when most of the people, like a large percentage of the people who got it, died. You know, now you combine that with they believe he had syphilis at the same time. You know, the fact that he was able to sweat this disease out, even though he was at higher risk because of having syphilis. You talk to medical experts today, and you look at the medical documents going all the way back. Not only do the medical documents going all the way back to his time, but also the medical experts today attribute him getting over that sickness because he was exercising. You know,
body good, it burns off calories, keeps the body pumping actively. It may not always be good for if you circulate certain things, but for the most part, it does good to get your heart pumping, the blood flowing, sweating out the natural,
right?
Taking in better, newer vitamin C, whatever.
Right.
It's
right. So I see no reason why, as long as they're socially distanced, you know, why kept sanitary, why gyms can't be open. You know, Nebraska never really locked down. Our governor here, he basically came out and said, I trust you guys to do the right thing. Here's what they're saying, but you guys make decisions for yourselves. And, Nebraska's numbers have been relatively low. My life really didn't change much. I go donate plasma twice a week. I, I go about my day-to-day business. If I need to go out for something, I go out for something. I've been getting my dog Freya trained as a service dog for me. But I've basically lived my day-to-day life as normal. And if I go into a place that says, hey, we need you to wear a mask, I'll put a mask on.
Exactly.
If I go into a place and they don't require it, I don't wear a mask.
Fully behind that. That's where I am. I don't personally like to. I wear it enough when I have to get into sanding and fiberglass and any other work I'm doing. I don't like to be wearing it more than when I'm working.
Right.
If the store says I have to go in, yeah, I'll slap it on. I'll go through, do what I have to do, get the hell out,
right,
and breathe fresh air again.
One of the things with the COVID thing, the mask thing, and the reason I choose not to wear a mask is you look at the N95 mask, right? Blow it up on a microscope. At the same time, overlay a blown up picture of the coronavirus to the same scale. What you'll notice is the fibers are like this, right? And the coronavirus is about big around as my pointer finger. The virus can go right through, unhindered. Just saying. They've actually shown this.
Honestly, I think it's more of a symbol of to either increase fear, to increase fear or decrease fear, depending upon which side you're going for there.
Right.
And a way to show compliance. Like, oh, yes, sir. I'm following the law. I got my mask. I got my big, like plexiglass shield in front of my face. I'm a good follower. Yes, sir. Don't be doing bad now.
I say, here's the thing, mandates I disagree with because they are taking away that personal choice, right? When, I believe they're unconstitutional when the government mandates you wear something. I believe it's unconstitutional. Require mandates that you have to do something like social distancing. Now that being said, I look at it like this: if social distancing works, why do we got to wear masks? If wearing masks works, why do we got to social distance? Personally, I believe that's a matter of they want people. It's a matter of compliance, not public safety.
Now, on the same token, there are legitimately some people in this certain
right
or another one, and if they want me, like if in the social environment with them, I will don a mask and
right, and
them because they're feeling scared and at risk. And
right,
make myself appropriate, back away from them, etc.
Right, and you see that I'm okay with. That I'm perfectly fine with.
Person to person level of
right.
Concern. Okay.
I do believe that people who are at higher risk should take more precautions, and those who have to interact with them should take more precautions for safety. But it should be a personal choice. That is rights and freedoms right there. This country, we got three types of people in this country. We got wolves, we got lion, and we got sheep. I'm not a wolf, and I sure as hell won't be a sheep. So what option does that leave me?
Gotta be a lion. Take the lead, take the charge, and start shouting out about what's going wrong that ain't right.
Right. Exactly my point. The sheep, they're being led to the slaughter by the wolves. Those of us who are lions, we're trying to, make those sheep into lions as well to prevent them from being led to the slaughter. The proverbial slaughter.
Shouted and touted as wolves per se, where the wolves like, yeah, we're sheep too. Keep coming this way. Keep coming to this way.
Right.
And
I'm almost out of beer. I'll have to fix that here in a little bit.
Let's see. What was the next one we were going to talk about?
Oh, we were going to talk about Trump and Biden.
That's right.
Okay, let's start out with Biden.
Okay.
You know, you look at Biden in the past. You look at his speeches. They were coherent. And in fact, I would say he was a great orator. I didn't necessarily agree with the things he was saying, but he was a great orator.
At least a good orator or a good reader, because he did often have a script.
Right. But the fact is, he could string more than two words together and create a sentence that was coherent. You look at him now, and, you know, the things he's saying and the way he's talking, like, we hold these truths to be I mean, you know the thing. You know.
Now,
you know.
Kamala Harris is actually the VP.
Don't let the Democrats hear you pronounce her name that way now. It's Kamala.
Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah, they're making a big deal over that. Basically, if you don't... Right. If you don't pronounce her name right, they label you a racist. I know. It's getting stupid out there, man.
First I've heard of that, but that's it. Since they're going to that level. Anyway, I just realized she's not actually the Indian lady, the American lady. She's actually the VP Biden picked. And on that note, they had like that little totally scripted. You can see it was like planned from the.
Oh, it was so fake.
See, it was like little scripted in front of the computer screen, which he couldn't even follow. And I'm thinking, myself, and thinking like, how many times did it take of that level of acceptability? How many times
right.
do you have to say that?
How many takes? You know, it's just mind-boggling. You look at some of the other things he's come out and said. If you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Your vote, even though I'm going to raise the tax rate, you think I'm going to lower it? No, I'm bringing it up. All the way up, 70%.
I'm talking about some of the racist things he said. Or poor kids can be just as smart as white kids.
I remember that one.
I mean, let's see, what else was there? There's quite a few. There's one really recent that he said, I don't think what it was, I remember now. So, he goes, unlike the Hispanic community, unlike the black community, the Hispanic community is very diverse.
I do remember hearing that one. Oh, yes.
I mean...
No. Please do not.
I mean, how he has any black supporters in this country, or even in the world as a whole.
Money.
I mean, you know, and one of the things about dementia, because my grandmother's going through dementia, you know, and she's much further along into it, but one of the things about dementia is you lose your filter.
Very much so.
Which me, I have very little filter anyways, so good Lord, if I ever get dementia, God, the world is in trouble.
Man.
The world is going to be in trouble. But, you know, especially Kentucky. There's one day I went through Kentucky that Kentucky's very lucky I did not have the nuclear launch codes. Because there would be no Kentucky. There would be a flat space where Kentucky used to be, put it that way.
I don't want to know what you had there if it was that bad.
We were passing through there and I had to take a crap. So we kept stopping at gas stations this is when I was driving for the other Jeff I know.
Was this during COVID?
No.
Okay, continue.
But anyways, every single gas station we stopped at, every single bathroom, the toilets were literally overflowing with crap. Like to the point there's no way you're going to be able to flush it down.
Are we talking like mound or just about spilling out of the bowl or flowing?
Like mounted over the seat. Like the seat you lift up, mounted over that. There was one, it was probably, a foot and a half over the seat. I'm like, how? How in the hell is that possible?
Disgusting.
Oh yeah, terrible. Like I said, Kentucky that day was very lucky I don't have access to nuclear launch codes. Kentucky, clean your crap up.
Literally. California, where they're just crapping in the streets.
Well, yeah. Or shooting up heroin in the streets, or, and leaving the needles just lying around for little Timmy to step on with his bare feet or something.
Or the massive increases in homelessness as things become more and more expensive.
Right. Anyways, back to Biden.
Here.
I look at it this way. If by some chance Biden somehow wins, that makes me really worried, because a vote for Biden is going to be a vote for Kamala Harris. I predict if somehow he wins, within 2 weeks of him getting elected, or within 2 weeks of his inauguration, if they let him go to the inauguration, he'll be ruled unfit to serve, and Kamala Harris will be sworn in as president.
Now, here's where I'm in. I don't believe that's going to happen for two reasons. One, he's doing terribly.
Right. Well, I don't think he's going to win, but I'm saying in the event that he wins.
And two, I started counting in reverse. Weird. The fact that they're basically planning to lose. Like, I'm seeing how much money they're not spending on anything, how little they're actually pushing Biden out there. Keep him shut up now.
Right. That's the best strategy they can have. Best chance they have at winning.
And it's honestly like they're trying to lose this. It's ridiculous. And with the whole mail-in thing, we want you to mail in. You got to mail in your votes so we can declare.
That's something we should bring up. Because there's a difference between a mail-in ballot and an absentee ballot. An absentee ballot you request, and then you mail it in. Once you receive it, you vote, you mail it in. Mail-in ballots, they just mail this stuff out to everyone. Me and Dad, we bought this house from some an older couple that moved into the assisted living center here in town, and I'm not going to use their names, but they moved in there, and the woman died. But if they decide to do mail-in ballots here, there's a chance we might get their ballots, even the woman who died.
Potentially could, yeah.
That leaves an opening. Not that me and my dad would, because we wouldn't. But that would leave a potential opening for
a moral individual to take advantage of.
Right, to vote multiple times. There's a chance that it would happen. Now I'm sure we'll call him Mr. R, who's still alive over there in the assisted living facility. I'm sure he would want his ballot, and we would bring it to him. But Mrs. R, she wouldn't be able to do that, because we wouldn't be able to give it to her because she's dead, and me and my dad would probably just shred that ballot and call it good.
Shred it, burn it, as long as it's
right. Yeah. Not to mention some other things to keep in mind is there's 15 states that did mail-in ballots, including my state for the primary, and in one of the states they rejected more mail-in ballots than Trump won by in that state.
Not uncommon.
So there's a potential that if you make a slight mistake on the ballot, that your vote won't be counted.
Don't forget there's also slight mistakes, like how a certain county in North Carolina suddenly found like just a dumpster full of, votes and ballots and whatnot that weren't cast. Well, I guess we gotta stay open an extra almost 2 hours to make sure they get processed. Dumpster votes. Wonder how Roy won.
You know, you might very well be right there. I mean, I don't know. I'm not familiar with this story, and I'll take your word for it. But it's one of those things where
I'm not saying that's how he got enough to win, but it was a damn close race, and it's that happened. And if we can't have voter security just at our regular polls, think about how this mail-in stuff is going to go.
Right. Well, I mean, me during the primary, the rest gave you the option to request a mail-in ballot, an absentee ballot in this case, where, right, absentee, fine, whatever. I'm okay with that. But I chose personally to vote in person, and I will again in November because then I know that my ballot is going to be counted. For sure, 100%, I know my ballot's going to be counted.
Part of the trouble for me is while I was out of state doing college and some other stuff, I was usually using the absentee ballots. And now that I'm in North Carolina, I am very happy, gung-ho to go to the polls and yes, I want a person.
Right.
It's put through.
And every American should have that option. They should have the option of either going in person or requesting an absentee ballot.
And
however they feel safe doing it.
The only problem right now is that none of the states are prepared for this level of mail-in ballots.
Right.
And it's just going to drag the process out for ages.
Right. I've only voted absentee once, and that was during a off-year election when I was over in Iraq. If I wanted to vote, that was my only option. But even in Iraq, I went in. Right. I went in. That actually had on my base. There was actually a place to go in and actually vote, where you fill out your absentee ballot, and they made sure you had everything correct on there. And if there wasn't something correct, they say, hey, you need to fix this. And then you sent your vote in.
Make sure you want to leave this blank. Make sure you filled in there. Check the other
right.
Blah, blah.
Make sure you mark this. Make sure you put this information in, etc., etc.
P's and Q's.
Right. Because the Army wanted to make sure that those of us who chose to vote, that our vote was indeed counted.
Nice.
But the Army had the infrastructure to do that. A lot of these states don't have the infrastructure.
And it would take more time than we had or have currently in order to do that.
Right.
The other problem that's actually facing some states is we can't get enough volunteers at the polls.
Right.
Observers and whatnot. We have a severe lacking due to COVID. I personally am going to try and volunteer if I can to make sure we can still have people come in person, but it's getting bad to not have enough volunteers of either side.
If I was there, I'd be voting. I'd be volunteering myself because I was involved with the Pamlico County Republican Party, even though I'm not a Republican.
Nice.
I tend to register Republican because, Republican, for primary purposes, and I may not be a Republican, but 9 times out of 10, I vote Republican.
More than likely, they tend to hold more values that you trust and put your support in than Democrats, typically.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I'll criticize Trump when I disagree with him. And, I look at Ronald Reagan, the demigod of the Republican Party. There is one thing for sure that I can criticism on that I know of. One thing I disagree with him on, and that was the full auto ban. And here's why I disagree with it. Because of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment says we have the right to bear arms, and our founding fathers elaborate on this when they talk about, one that says we have the right to bear arms and it shall not be infringed. But our founding fathers elaborate on this, and they explain letters and, and documents they wrote on it, that it was because they wanted to prevent a tyrannical government from taking over in the United States, either foreign or domestic.
Now, this is where I actually get a little bit torn on the issue. Honestly enough, I personally do really want to have a full automatic gun. Oh my god, it's so beautiful. The sound. I've never actually gotten.
I think I know what you're about to say on it.
I'm not sure if I want a license or something else, but when it gets to fully automatic, like heavy caliber stuff, there should be a little more keep an eye on that.
Right. Well, see, the full auto ban has been amended. Now you can get what's called a Class 3 weapons license. But here's the thing. The way the Class 3 weapons license works is you're going to spend thousands of dollars on training, which most people don't have that floating around, just to apply for the Class 3 weapons license.
Not guaranteed to get it.
Right. Then you're going to spend thousands for the license. Then you're going to spend thousands for the weapon because of the ban and the cost of them is ridiculous. And then every year you're going to have to spend thousands on a tax stamp. The average American cannot afford this. And see, I don't agree there should be a license because the Second Amendment is not about need. It's about the right to have that. Yes, I agree that every gun owner in this country should, of their own volition, get training from someone who knows what they're talking about. Whether it's a veteran, or whether it's a law enforcement person, or whether it's, a safety class that from some expert who knows what they're talking about. Or a safety class given by a private individual who's owned guns for years, knows the ins and outs, and knows how to responsibly handle a firearm.
Private individual, a class at the local school, which we actually used to have, but aren't allowed to do anything. Right. etc. Something to get them informed on handle them safely.
And if there's a viewer out there, we don't really got anybody on Twitch right now, but if there's a viewer out there like watching this on YouTube when it goes up on YouTube this weekend, who wants to own a firearm but doesn't really know much about it, by all means, send me an email at realmenwearkillstv@gmail.com. I will gladly share my knowledge free of charge. In fact, if you haven't purchased it and you live in my area, which we'll determine through email, I'll go with you to buy your first firearm and help you pick out what's right for you. Gladly, 100%. I feel that's my responsibility as a responsible gun owner.
To help inform other parts of the public.
Right. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to any prospective new gun owner, when you get that gun, always treat it like it's loaded, whether you know it's unloaded or not. And if you're not ready to fire, keep your booger hook, this right here, your booger hook, off the trigger. To quote my drill sergeant.
And if you're pointing it at someone, which you shouldn't do, if you are, you better be aiming to take that person down. Because if you're not, get that out of their damn face and keep it on the ground.
Right. And you better have a lawful reason for doing it.
Especially.
It's one of those things where, I criticize Reagan over this because this law basically infringes upon our right to possess firearms and our right to defend ourselves against a potentially tyrannical government.
The first step in a lot of more enforcement and clamping down on gun ownership, honestly.
I mean, you look at Biden, he's already come out and openly said that he's going to basically make Pete Buttigieg his gun czar, and they're going to force buybacks. Now, you talk to Australians will tell you this. In fact, there's a video out there of an Australian saying this. He said, "Yeah, we had buybacks out here in Australia, and when the buybacks were done, we woke up one day and guns were illegal. You know, they forced buybacks in Australia, and then once the guns were all bought back, they made guns illegal.
Yep. I still remember seeing like the images and videos of all like the guns in piles like burning up and being melted down, and I was like, you this badly.
Right.
You let it get to this level where you're burning piles of guns.
Right. You know, and you look at Australia's violent crime rate, it's skyrocketed, especially in places like Sydney and Melbourne and let's say other major city that they have. Either way, the point is, violent crime rates skyrocketed after this happened.
But hey, at least they don't have AR-15s.
You know, and that's another thing. That's another thing. That, they talk about military-style weapons, which Biden's come out and said that, he won't let people have military-style weapons. Okay. Here's the thing. You take the AR-15 and you compare it to I believe it's a Ruger... I can't remember the exact Ruger model, but there's a Ruger model out there. Looks like it's got wooden stock. It's got wooden foregrip. All that good stuff, right? Looks like a regular hunting rifle, but it fires at the same rate as an AR-15, which is basically as fast as you can do this. It takes the same exact ammo and the same magazines. But the liberals are okay with that. They're not okay with the AR-15s. You know what the difference between them is? The AR-15 has some scary black parts.
Oh my god, scary black parts. Or better or worse, little rattling things at the front to let off hot air. Oh my god, it's got more holes in it. It must be more dangerous. Ah!
Oh, I actually should clarify the scary black parts. It's got scary black plastic parts. And aluminum black plastic parts that are scary too.
And then it's got shiny metal parts that are like...
But you look at the guts of it versus the guts of that Ruger rifle, and I can't remember what one it is, and I'll have to look it up. But you look at the guts, the internal workings, exactly the same. Identical.
Gun, just different shapes and sizes.
Right. They just covered it in wood instead of black metal and plastic parts.
The original Luger is basically the same thing as a 9mm pistol, fires the same bullets, does the same mechanics, it's just in a new package and delivers it in a more convenient. Got it.
Right. It's absolutely ridiculous. I look at it this way. If someone can afford to buy a tank that's operational, more power to them.
I want a tank.
Oh, I'd love to have a tank.
Other than like Walmart.
Exactly. I wouldn't even have anything chambered in the barrel. I just want to drive to Walmart and back. I'll put rubber tracks on it so it doesn't damage the road. Mm-hmm. There's actually a guy in England who owns tanks, and he actually has driven like his kids to school in them and shit.
I've seen the guy here in America that has like this big like World War I to World War II museum, and he's got like tanks you can fire and licenses,
right?
Stuff. It's in the middle of the desert, and a museum with uniforms, guns, everything, in like pristine condition. So,
right.
Oh, he got the life of it right there.
Hell, if you can afford a fully loaded aircraft carrier, more power to you. And by fully loaded, I mean the jets and everything.
Everything, jets to the tree trunk cannons.
Right.
More of a battleship, but you get the point.
Well, if you can afford a battleship, more power to you is the way I look at it. Now I will draw a line at like nuclear weapons. Personally, I don't think anybody should have that, including governments.
Well, in agreement on that.
Unfortunately, we kind of need them because if we get rid of ours, then we're open to psycho countries like North Korea.
Well, mind you, we're in a proper treaty with North Korea now. We're on pretty good terms, and we're slowly getting them on the right path. Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't trust them.
Well, I didn't say I could.
And actually, technically, South Korea and Japan have a treaty with North Korea. We never signed it, and Congress never ratified it. We're technically still at war with North Korea.
Didn't we get into talks and Trump signed something not too long ago?
Well, there's the armistice, but that's been in effect since the 1940s.
Something recent where like Trump and Kim got to talking and they signed something. I don't remember what it was now, and I feel real stupid. Within this year.
Well, I mean, I watched quite a bit of that, and the only thing I really saw is,
was it a trade deal?
No. I don't think they actually signed anything, but they've met with each other, and like Trump walked into North Korea briefly, and
I know our relationship has been getting better, and
right, which actually right now it's back on the rocks because of the election. Because see, Kim knows that if Trump doesn't get reelected, that he basically can do what he wants again.
And he kind of like that.
Right. Now we've been negotiating with Kim, and hopefully with actually Moon, I should say, because that's technically his first name because Kim's a surname.
It's more of like the leader. That's why we call him Trump. We don't call him Donald. We call him Trump. We don't call
right. But him. Right. Anyways, little Rocket Man. He's still viewed as a god by his people.
He walks on for the most part.
They believe that from Kim Jong-il's father down to him, they're all divine bloodline people.
It's like the Japanese feudalism where they believe that the emperor is basically God.
Right, but on crack.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a mixture of crack, steroids, and meth, but, you get the idea.
Heard one of the doctors went over there. Like, they cured some kind of problem with their eyes. It's like an easy fix thing in today's generation.
Right.
Went and turned towards the picture of Kim and, like, thanked Kim for giving us this, like, blessing and whatever. And it's like...
Oh, that's another thing. If you take a picture of one of the statues of the 3 North Korean leaders, if you don't get the entire statue in the picture, you can be executed because it's imagining the dismemberment or death of that leader.
You take like good 1 or 2 steps forward, and then you take like 12 back.
Yeah, South Korea's okay. They're our friends. We'd like North Korea to be our friends too, but we'd like North Korea to be our friends too, but
Don't even get me started on China and everything horrible going over there with
oh god,
Kong and a few other things. I'm not gonna say where it's on because Twitch doesn't like you saying things on that.
Oh, I'll talk about China all day long. I'll put this out there as far as Hong Kong goes. Hong Kong, kudos to you guys for fighting for your freedom. I wish you the best of luck. If you guys do finally get your freedom, do what you guys have been talking about wanting to do, which is apply to be annexed by the United States, but get your freedom first. Then we can talk. Hong Kong wants to get annexed by the United States as a new state.
I don't think we're going to make another state. Like, we're not even doing that with Puerto Rico.
Well, Puerto Rico keeps voting it down.
Not just Puerto Rico, even here in the States, we've been like, no, calm your jets there, buddy.
Well, unfortunately, statehood's very unpopular in in Puerto Rico. However, statehood is very popular in Hong Kong, But in order for that to even be possible, they have to win their independence.
Honestly, I think we could. I'd prefer we just get them back on their feet rather than having them become their state. I think it'd be.
Well, actually, Hong Kong, strategically speaking and economically speaking, once they get their freedom, Hong Kong is huge. Like, economically, they're huge, and strategically speaking, they're very huge. Now, there's also a movement by the Philippines, within the Philippines, not by the government, but amongst the people, it's growing popularity to be annexed by the United States as another state. On top of that, all our little Pacific islands that we have want to combine with Hawaii and become a state known as Pacifica.
I actually hadn't heard about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I recently heard about that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
I'll try and look into that over there.
Yeah, but they're talking about, incorporating, like, even the islands that aren't permanently inhabited, like, Midway and, places like that are just simply holdings, but also like Guam and Samoa and the Northern Marianas Island.
Wow.
Yeah, Northern Marianas Islands. Yeah, they all want to get combined with Hawaii as and become a state known as Pacifica. Now, I don't know how Hawaii feels about this. I haven't heard anything on that.
Hawaii might be on the end of become your own state. We're doing good here, bud. Otherwise, I wouldn't be totally against that.
Right.
Oh, well.
I mean, so there's lots of little things going on around the world as far as that. But something going on in China right now, and there's this guy I've been following for about 5 years now. He lives in Japan, or he's either Japan or South Korea, I can't remember. But he's a YouTuber, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I could find him on YouTube if I wanted to.
Now,
but
YouTuber or VTuber?
YouTuber.
Okay.
Anyways, over the last 5 years I've followed him, he has accurately predicted and reported on things coming out of China before our news even got a hint of it. Like months ahead. And something going on in China right now that he's saying is going on in China, it hasn't hit our news yet, is that China currently has all of Manchuria, including inner and outer Mongolia, the parts of Mongolia that China owns, locked down.
We talking about like the getting people in trains thing going on in China? Because I've been seeing some of
there's that too, but the reason they got them locked down, massive plague outbreak.
Like we talking medieval plague or just sickness?
One of the plagues, I can't remember if it's bubonic or one of the other two, but there's 3 diseases we call the plague. There's a bubonic plague, the
Black Plague.
Well, no, there's actually a different pneumonic plague, and I can't remember the third one. But either way, I think bubonic's actually the one that was known as the Black Plague. But either way, the anemic plague? No, that's not right. I can't remember. Anyways, apparently there's a massive outbreak. Like, we've heard over here that there was like 1 or 2 cases, but apparently it's like thousands of cases throughout that whole region. So,
like gotten people together and burned down villages to keep plague down before.
Right.
Supposedly.
Right.
And if they're already rounding up and closing down villages, this is not looking good for over there.
No, it's definitely not. And, the fact that China's keeping it hush-hush makes me almost go, crap, are they going to try and pull what they did with COVID?
They've already done it once. I had them pass them to do it.
Yeah, and that's another thing I'm going to say right now. All the Chinese officials who were in charge of, making it so that the people of the, how was that province the COVID started in?
I want to say Xi Jinping, but that's not right.
No, that's not right. Anyways, all the, making it so those people couldn't go to other parts of China with their, but could travel internationally. Whoever, all the officials that were involved with making that decision need to be brought before the Hague or the Hogue or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
No, not the WHO. It's like Hague or Hogue or something. Anyways, it's a international military tribunal court, and charged with war crimes in the form of biological warfare. Because it's those people who are responsible for COVID getting out the way it did.
I do have 3 little snippets to say on that, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Now, the first one is that I don't know how much truth there is to this, but supposedly they were all doing this.
There's a possibility of that.
There was this doctor that was doing it. They'd been working on it for a while, and apparently it got out because how's this bat is getting into a fish market?
Right.
There. Part which highly disgusting. They sent messages to people over in the Europe, US, whatever, and told them to go buy up all the PPE, hazmat suits, sanitizer, with much as they could, send it back to China. And what they did after that, I'll let you guess.
I'll take your word for it.
No, I'm gonna let you guess what they did after that. After they got it and sent it back to China.
Wasted it?
No. Worse. They failed the price and then sold it back to us.
Ah.
And then
so war profiteering.
Not just war profiteering, price gouging. And
right.
To top it off, the N95 mask had to be recalled because of a defect. Sorry, no refunds.
This is, I wouldn't put past China to have done that. I've heard some stuff on what you just said there. I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but it's worth investigating. And the fact that China has been resisting investigations into this stuff tells me they're probably guilty. And the Chinese government needs to be held accountable for what they've done. Period. End of story. And if we can't, bring actual international charges against the officials, fine. We remove all our manufacturing out of there. Or make policies that make that happen. We need those jobs back here anyways. So, it's one of those things where, don't get me wrong, I like stuff from Wish because it's cheap. But I've gotten to the point where if I order something from Wish, I make sure it's a US-based supplier.
Local provider.
Right, which they actually have a whole section of the site that is nothing but products from local-based suppliers.
Now, I just realized we got really far from our original topic of Biden and
Yes, we did. Anyways, going back to Biden real quick before we get into Trump, I just don't see Biden being elected. I don't see him having a chance. Kanye's out there, but let's face it, Kanye ain't got a shot at hell becoming president this time around.
He'd be a very interesting president. I don't know.
He would. He would be interesting. And, a lot of what he's arguing, once you filter out all the emotional stuff, is actually pretty good and constitutional.
I haven't heard some of his newer speeches or anything, but back before he was running for presidency, I know he had certain fairly conservative values, which I'm like, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, basically what he's been arguing as a candidate for president has been, anti-abortion, Christianity, the Constitution, lower taxes, stuff like that. But he's a very emotional speaker when he talks, and that is hurting him.
It honestly is with the way we're already
right.
Charged.
Anyways, final thought on Biden.
Biden's just Biden's time. He's worthless and useless at this point in time, except for as a law excuse with the mail.
Or puppet.
Big old sock puppet. Yep.
Final thoughts on Biden myself. He's early stage dementia. If I had to guess, I'm not a doctor, but I'm guessing.
By the looks of
Total puppet. And if by some miracle he actually manages to win, hopefully President Kamala Harris will not be so bad. Hopefully. I'm not holding my breath, though.
I don't want to even.
All right. Okay. Trump.
Okay. Big old Trump.
Well, I think Trump, if he can get Biden on the debate stage, it'll be a landslide. But it needs to be no scripts, impartial moderator, truly impartial moderator, and honestly, I think if the debates are set up that way, which I don't think they're going to be, because most of the debates are done by the liberal media, are moderated by members of the liberal media. Honestly, I think if the American people actually tune in and hopefully hold off early vote until the first debate, I think we're looking at a Trump landslide. And Trump may not be the best person for the job, but he's the best one running.
He's a pretty damn good option considering what we have.
Right. He's the best one running.
Now,
that stands a chance.
The really worrisome thing is the fact that we're this far into the upcoming election, we haven't had a single debate with the candidates.
Right. And, I think we need a fourth debate. I think we need it very soon. Because I think North Carolina, if I remember correctly, you guys are getting ready to start early voting very soon. Which means you could have potentially millions of votes before a single debate happens.
We've had some people come out and do talks and whatnot, but no debates.
And right.
Like that, so we can get.
And see, we really need the candidates side by side. Really need the candidates side by side to show the proper contrast between the two. And there is a serious contrast between the two candidates. I'm drinking beer, you're drinking water.
Does the body good?
Yeah, beer does. I don't know. What's your initial thoughts on Trump?
I think he's shooting himself in the foot just a little bit. He's being a lot more out there with social media, a lot more. And while that was a strength for him in his first election, it's a bit more of a club in the foot mouth whole scenario.
Foot and mouth disease?
Yeah.
I can see what you're talking about there. I wish he would be a little more discerning about what he puts out on social media and how he puts it out. I get what he's saying most of the time, and most of the time it's really, really good. But
every once in a while, there's a two where it's like.
Well, here's the thing. Even those tweets, what he's actually trying to say is really good. He's just not saying it right. Yeah. It was kind of like, when he's talking about building the wall, back when he was first running, the way he was talking about it, I understood what he said, what he meant when he said Mexico would pay for it. But I'm smarter than the average person.
Smarter than the average bear, Yogi.
I think you're probably right up there with me. But, I understood that what he really meant was, tariffs, different trade deal, things that would cost them money.
Get the cost out of them, not directly, but indirectly through.
Right. Yes, our taxpayer dollars are paying for it directly, but Mexico's also paying for it indirectly.
Because we actually do get a lot of like medical supplies and a bunch of other stuff, airplane parts from Mexico, actually.
Tractor parts, car parts.
Kinds of stuff
from over there.
Would slowly trickle into being enough to build the wall.
Right. You look through the new trade deal between Mexico, Canada, and U.S., that's factored in there. Mexico and Canada, neither one of them have as good a deal as they used to have. It's a more balanced deal, and it's actually more in favor of the U.S. than it is either other country involved.
Which is a lot better than it used to be in a lot of...
Right, well, you look at NAFTA in the U.S. was basically screwed up the ass by that one. Without dinner getting bought first either. Or any lube used.
Rough ride.
Oh, yeah. Not exactly smooth either. But,
all in all, he has been like a good boom for the economy in a lot of ways.
He has. I mean, despite the COVID thing, you look at before COVID hit, the economy was doing good. We were for sure looking at Trump landslide because, let's face it, most voters vote with their wallet. And most people's wallets before COVID hit was fat.
I was quite happy with how my portfolio was looking for a time.
Right. But you look when, with COVID hitting, it really hurt things.
It didn't.
But.
Down spiral, but it definitely put a dent in where
we're. Right. But even still.
It's still going up. Our
economy's going back up already. It's already starting to recover. We haven't done with this COVID stuff. And it's because of Trump's leadership. I may not agree with everything he has to say, but I have to admit, he's doing good for the country. And, I'll admit, I've been to a Trump rally. I've been to a Trump rally. I mean, we were at the same one.
You've seen me at a Trump rally.
But I'm not his biggest fan either. I'm like...
It was here. It was an opportunity. I went and got to...
I mean, how many times do you get to stand that close to a president of the United States? I mean, I could have took my hat off and lightly tossed it and it would have hit him in the shoulder or something.
But yeah.
Well, no, I said hat, not like something else or,
Water bottle, not anything.
Right.
But yeah.
I wouldn't do anything to hurt him or anything like that. I mean, that would be, I wouldn't have done anything to hurt Obama when he was president. I didn't like him at all.
Rest and more dispute we don't need. It's not worth it.
Right. I hope Trump wins because if he doesn't, we're already starting to see what's going to happen if he doesn't.
I'm on agreement.
When you look at like Portland, you look at now, what was that town? Kenosha, Wisconsin. You look at New York City. You look at Chicago. I personally believe what we're seeing is the start of a civil war.
I don't know if it's a civil war, but we are seeing a grim prediction of what the future could potentially be. And
right.
Lawless and at war with itself in a lot of ways.
Right. And you look at history though. Every great empire fell from the inside through civil war, and on every one of those empires, when that civil war kicked off that caused them to fall, it was started just like this. You look at history, it started just like what's going on today and now.
That's why we gotta fight so hard in this coming up election.
We do. We need Trump to get reelected. We need him to then start taking the actions necessary. Maybe even invoking the Insurrection Act, which is where Congress gave him literally the power to do so. He might have to invoke the Insurrection Act and send in federal troops in order to squash these riots and these. I mean, what they're doing is insurrection for the most part. I mean, they're going after government buildings, they're going after government officials, they're going after communities.
I'm hoping we don't have to. I really.
I mean, I hope we don't have to, but I mean, at this point, the way it's looking, you look at these Democrat governors and mayors, they're not doing a thing about it.
Giving in, riling up, supporting them to do more. And it's like, if you had just taken it.
And they're being offered help. They're being offered help by the president, and they're rejecting it.
They're helping the protesters, giving them food, drink, water, whatever.
And then the protest and the rioters, let's call them what they are, the rioters, are turning around and biting the hand that's feeding them.
Every official that's gone to support them, that one gray-haired, lanky guy, I can't remember his name, and the one other lady in a different city. It's ridiculous. Their support slapping them back in the face, wanting more and more. And as a closing note on that, analyst about cartels and drugs and warlords and stuff.
Right.
Tactics Antifa is using and whatever other group are militaristic. They're keeping an eye on where the cop vehicles were coming from. They're reporting things in, forming those shield walls. That's near about military training and efficiency on some of that stuff.
Right.
Where I'm getting worried, like you were saying.
And that's the thing we got to keep in mind is, it's getting scary out there, and I mean, it's even slowly encroaching on places like central Nebraska. There's little things going on in Grand Island and Kearney, which are 30 and 40 miles away, from where I live. And, I look at what's going on, and I'm like, if we're not careful, we're going to fall apart as a country. And I would hate to see that happen. I really would. I mean, I love this country. I love the rights and freedoms that I enjoy because I was born by the grace of God in this country. And, the rights and freedoms that I served in the military to protect. This is...
By the way.
I did my job and made it home. But anyways, I appreciate you saying that, but like I said, I did my job and made it home. But anyways, I also, here's something that I do worry about with Trump. I look at what's going on in the country. I look at how Trump's been starting to react to it, and I do worry that he's getting a little bit on the authoritarian side.
And I will say I agree in that, but I'm also they're pushing him more and more to have to act like that.
Right, and
good either.
Right.
Ourselves put in a corner here for some of this.
Right, and my fear about him getting more and more authoritarian is one, he's being pushed that direction, and two, there's a certain point when you start becoming more authoritarian. There's a certain point where you pass that point of no return. And I do worry about that. I hope he doesn't get pushed that far. And if he starts getting pushed that far, I hope he pushes back. But I do worry just a little bit about that. I'm
a bit worried. It's
right.
Have about every president, honestly, with
right. Well, I mean, I can't remember who said it, but one of the founding fathers said healthy skepticism of the government is a good thing.
I've given you a republic if you can keep it, and it's looking a lot less like a republic and a lot more like a democracy these days.
Right. And see, that's another thing that people need to be educated on. There's a difference between a democracy and a democratic republic. We are a democratic republic. Democracy, there's no protection for the individual. Me and, say, 3 other guys could get together and say, we all vote, we're going to have a vote with you, and it's going to be over whether or not you get to keep your stuff. You're obviously going to vote to keep your stuff. But the rest of us all vote to take your stuff away. You lose your stuff.
Well, that's a democracy.
That's a democracy. That is a basic description of democracy. There's no protection for individual rights, privileges, and property.
Which is why we were made a republic. A democratic republic.
Right. And now, in a democratic republic, you have protections. There's protections for the individual against the masses. And that is very critical to understand. In a democratic republic, me and 6 other guys can't come up and say, have a vote with you to take away your stuff and win that vote because, at least not legally, because, well, you have a right to have property and, personal rights and freedoms and all that stuff.
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, baby.
Right. Anyways, my dad's going to be home soon, so he's going to make some noise when he comes in. Final thought on Trump.
Final thought, I believe that he's going to be, honestly, probably what we need right about now. Maybe not the perfect thing we need, but best choice that we have, and pretty good fighting chance for what we're going to keep in the future. Yeah, and I do have that little worry that you have, but I feel as though with what he's shown us in the past, he's going to demonstrate his consciousness here and moral standards and keep above,
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think overall Trump's the best option available. Short of voting for Mickey Mouse, which is basically throwing your vote away. So, like last time, I'm probably going to vote for him again this time, unless something crazy happens.
Unless real crazy happens.
Like, I mean, it's going to have to be akin to Jesus rising from the dead. It's going to have to be on like that level of a crazy miracle happening.
I'd vote for zombie George Washington.
Yeah, I think I would too, but that's a side point. So zombie George Washington might change his mind on the whole king thing.
His morals and stuff. But, yeah. Anyway, that's all I got on my end, unless there's like any other closing thoughts you want me to go on.
No, I'm just going to close out real quick. Thanks for watching Real Men Wear Kilts TV. Check out Shell Shock CBD. Use code Patrick for 10% off your order. We will be back tomorrow night with some gaming at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hope to see you there. Oh, and Facebook, YouTube, you should have caught me live.